All right. GM, thank you. Thank you for making time to speak to the Back Sports. We appreciate opportunities like this because we're a growing brand. We're young, we're not small. We're fortunate to have some experienced people in the team. Even if the brand is less than a year old, its mother brand, the Back Group, is 3 years old. And we know how much you have been part of very young things. You know, you've been part of many startups, a number of startups. And you saw them grow, contribute to them grow. So we know you appreciate these things. We can go back to either whether it's Dreams or it's a Ghana Soccer Net or any of the things you've been part of. So we're grateful that you've made time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm considering resigning here to come and join you.
You can't pay.
I see the prospect. It's not about the returns, the immediate returns. The prospect is huge.
We thank God.
And the group of people that you put together, the exciting group of people, innovative people. And these are the kind of people I always want to be around.
Yeah, thank you. We'll do our best.
So you're onto a very good thing.
With the help of people like you, because this is not something you do. You've been doing football journalism for many years now. This is not something you do. So we really appreciate it that you made the time to speak to us. How are you enjoying this life with all of these responsibilities you have? First, to be general manager of a Ghana Premier League team is enough headache already. You're adding education to it, family to it, you're adding your private things to it, you're adding Ghana national football team, the Black Stars, Wahala to it. You are adding all of the other things you concern yourself with regularly. I've been thinking, how have you been managing?
To be honest with you, I don't have an answer. As you were asking the question, I kept reflecting. And the honest truth is I don't have an answer. I'll just take it as we go. Just take it by the day. It's full of challenges. And I'm one who's always up for a fight. Want to always be in a situation where there's challenges, we have to find solutions. So I guess that motivation is what drives me and almost makes me forget how I'm able to juggle all these responsibilities. I guess we just attribute it to the grace of God, because I actually don't have an answer, a clear-cut answer. Just wake up in the morning, be grateful with the gift of life and good health, and then just box on as we come along. A lot of challenge, like you said. It's not easy. Some have the potential of wrecking the other, especially when results don't go well in either venture that I'm involved in. But by and large, I think we've managed quite well. We are still surviving.
All right. So there are people who know you. Obviously, when you took up the job as team manager, or what I call general manager of the Black Stars, there are many who have come to know you for that role. But you double as the general manager of Dreams FC. Your initial life, or your life a few years ago, was a journalist and then got into football administration. So if someone asks, Ameenu Shardwo, who is he and what does he do? How do you describe that? So what does Ameenu Shardwo do? What do you do?
It's to sports, specifically football management. That's how I describe my profession. Like you said earlier on, even before I'm not a trained journalist, by the way. I was never trained to be a journalist. I was just a football fanatic. And out of the passion, I was able to meet certain people who opened certain doors to me. And I basically learned on the job to become as good as I believe I became. So I think everything, every phase, every trade that I've gotten myself involved is just like a preparation to the next step. Who knows, maybe I'll be moving on to another leg of my career. So I only see all these stages as preparatory ground or a stepping stone towards achieving higher heights. So if you ask me, I would say I'll call myself a football management consultant. Okay. That's pretty much who I am. Try to steady the ropes of the industry and try to adopt and see how best we can impact the small knowledge that we've acquired into achieving something even bigger.
So you've arrived at football management consultancy or a football manager. Is that the point for you? Is that where you are? Have you finally settled on who you are and what you will do? Because many years ago you were doing journalism. I mean, you were doing football writing. I don't know if back then you thought you would transition into full-time football management. You are here now. Is this the end in itself? Because maybe football writing or football journalism was a means to an end. Is this the end itself for you, football management?
I don't think so. And every now and then I've had occasions to sit down to even ask myself this same question. And the overwhelming answer is that there's something more. What it is, I'm here to figure out.
Something more in football or in something in a different area.
It's not something I can place a finger on.
Science.
No, okay, I can tell you what probably I wouldn't do. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be in banking. Mm-hmm. That's something that I don't see how I'll do something like banking, mm-hmm. doing something, the same thing over and over and over again. I don't think I'm built for such a thing. So that's
I'm not sure the bankers will be happy with you.
Well, some of them love what they do and full respect to what they do, but that's something that I don't find myself. Yeah. I'm somebody who likes to really explore, try new things at any point in time. So if you put me there, you probably...
So banking you won't do?
Yes, that's something that I'm very, very sure I wouldn't do.
Medical science you
yes, that also probably I wouldn't do. Even
but
though
football,
I study science.
You study secondary school. But you threw that away.
The thing is that I love the sports. Mm-hmm. I've always loved the sports, and I find it and that's why probably I always go the extra length to get things done, because it doesn't feel like work. I'm living my passion. So yes, it would be safe to say that's something within the industry. But who knows? You never say never in life. Maybe, like I said, it's also preparing me to a different industry. That probably I'll probably use the skill set and the skills that I've acquired here to manage the next life. But then I know for sure this is not the end.
It's not the end. All right, we'll get into those other things. We'll get into the end and all of that. Trace our steps a bit. So, football management, obviously, must be the most challenging thing you've done so far.
It is
for you.
It is, because you are confronted with new problems every day, and that's one unique thing about sports. That's why sporting entities, even though they are supposed to operate like corporate, bodies and banking institutions and all that, they'll tell you sports is different because it's driven purely by the humanities, and that's why every day there's a problem, and you might think you've solved one problem, you put out one fire only to be met with even a bigger one. And that's why I think that's pretty much why I really like it here, because it's always challenging. Every day comes with its own challenges. So yes, it's very exciting for me. Yeah, it's exciting. By and large, you can have your off days as every industry, but I think we've had quite some good times also, and I think those good times fuel, the appetite to go in for more. So yes.
All right.
It's the most challenging, but I think it has been the most exciting, quite rewarding in terms of my career path. I'm always grateful for the opportunities in this industry.
All right. So you talk about challenges. Of course, the good days that fuel what you guys do. Do I get the sense that then there are a myriad of challenges doing football in Ghana, or there's a particular challenge with football? So, because I ask myself, so what then is the biggest challenge football faces in Ghana? Because now we're limiting the conversation to football. Sports is a bit broader than usual. But football, Ghana football, the stories don't seem to change much over the years. What is the biggest challenge with football in Ghana? I am sure you've heard a lot of things, whether it's the administrators who are greedy, inept, not qualified, etc., or government is not putting money into it, or the people, or the challenges are marketing, or we're not able to harness people's passion. What is the biggest challenge with football in Ghana, or if there are a myriad of challenges you want to share?
In my experience, the biggest challenge is the mindset towards the sport. And I think that, for me, is the starting point. How we approach the sport of football. We've stuck to our old ways of seeing football as mere recreation. But the world has moved on from football being mere recreation. That's probably why we are struggling to catch up with, those who are running away with it. Once we are able to understand very well that football has changed from what we've always known it to be, I think then we begin to appreciate and strive and put in the measures that are required for us to view football as it is to be. It's no more recreation. Yes, it could be, some portions of it could be recreational, but majority parts of football today is purely business. It's purely driven by commerce. And that's why we have so many challenges here, because people just don't understand that football has changed, has evolved from it being mere recreational. And that's why people, a lot of practitioners in the game, people who are expected to spearhead this revolution, are still stuck in their old ways, because they don't understand what football has become now. It's purely a source of livelihood. And I hope that the day will come where generally all of us will understand that football has evolved to this stage. Once we get to that realization, it will cascade into all other areas. Because then if you don't understand how important or valuable a commodity is, you will always hesitate in investing in it. You will not market it well. You will not give it the kind of attention that it deserves to grow. But once you begin to understand that it's of enormous value and the returns of it are enormous also, you will probably put in a lot more investment that is required. You put in the infrastructure, the kind of support, for it to grow. So I'm hoping that one day we'll get to that realization. Once we get to that realization, I think that will be the turnover point for us.
Okay. All right. So now you talk about, so if I summarize everything you have said, the realization hasn't hit us the way it should. So football business is not something we have gotten into the way we should. So we're still doing it as a pastime. But then, as someone who is in football, the argument is against those in football that if there's anyone who will bring about that realization, I mean, if a group of people who realize that and begin to champion that realization, it is the people in football. And that begs the question, do we have the right people or the people with the right mindset running football in Ghana?
I mean, I wouldn't disagree with people who have the notion that we don't have the right kind of people. But I would say that the right kind of people in the industry are in a minority, unfortunately, and that's why it has been slow-paced. It it takes a lot to convince people who are ducked in their old way to change. Change is actually a very, very difficult thing. And it becomes even more difficult when people who are trying to lead a change are in the minority. It's extremely difficult. Football people, as they call them, are people who are very stuck in their old ways. It's difficult to change them. But then it is not something that is impossible. We should be able to do that. And that's why I'm hoping that more and more people, especially new people who are coming into the industry with fresh ideas, continue to lead the advocacy for us to change, because it's in our collective interest for us to change and set course for prosperity. Without that, we'll continue to wallow in this. We just have minor gains scratch on the surface where there's a bigger pie to earn from. And I hope that people who are also in the industry will soften their hearts and their stance on their old dogmatic way, which might have helped them or worked in times past, so that they can imbibe and open up to new things. Like I said, if we don't change, it's to our collective, gain and sustainability for us to look at what people are doing elsewhere. It's very possible for us to also, enjoy from the enormous gains of football. People have done it before. People from zero have done it before. If you look at Asian football nowadays, it's becoming bigger and bigger because they've imbibed their professionalism and the modern way of doing things. And here we have the talent. So it's very possible that if we're able to change course, we will not only catch up, we'll probably overrun the successes that have been made elsewhere.
We talk about change course, but who is going to change that course? Because I ask the question, which is the biggest, most influential group, team, or body that can inspire this change, that can virtually force this change? And how long should that take? Some mention government involvement in football, and then the argument about how they must do it in a proper way before they incur the wrath of FIFA or anything. And there are those who say, Ghana Football Association, and we try to consider the Ghana Football Association as a sacrosanct body from the clubs, when indeed the clubs make up the Ghana Football Association. So which is the most influential, most important body if we're to change this thing we all know should be football business rather than football as a pastime?
They always say charity begins at home, but we also say football is the passion of the nation. Mm-hmm. So preferably all of us should come to that realization. That helps the process. But for me, I think it's also very important for those of us in the industry, the practitioners, to lead that change. It will be, like I said, it will be okay if everybody hits that realization, even as a fan, how to even conduct yourself as a fan has even changed. But the truth of the matter is that change is always led by a certain group. And for me, the group that's supposed to lead the change are the ones that stand to benefit the most if the change goes well. And it's us, the practitioners. So to answer your question, it's all of us involved in football.
But there are some people who hold themselves to be football people. They are the ones who say, okay, we make the decisions. Maybe a few people, a little over 100 people will gather and say, yeah, we select our own people who lead us. We're the ones who make the decisions. We're football people. And when it suits them, we're football people. And then if they need the bigger Ghanaian populace to get behind them, then that one, we're not getting the support, etc. How do you reconcile this discrepancy?
I think it's an approach that we need to change. Like I said earlier, we keep saying football is the passion of the nation. It therefore means that every Ghanaian is a potential football person. Mm-hmm. And I think if we approach approach things with the mindset of involving a lot more people, because our sport is in such a way that it thrives on mass participation. We cannot limit it to those of us who are privileged enough to be leading clubs and be in administration. It doesn't stop there. We need to bring a lot more people, in fact, the entire nation, who have the heartbeat of football at their heart. We need to bring them along. I think that's the approach, and it all stems back to the realization that I keep speaking of. Once we realize that this thing is huge, the benefit of it it's not only limited to those of us in the industry. It goes way beyond that. Once we hit that realization, then we probably will begin to approach things in a very, very different way. But of course, I agree with you. It has to start with those of us who are taking the decisions.
And that, you know what, the clubs, you mean the clubs, the GFA.
When I say the clubs make up more like the GFA. So the moment you decide to be involved in football, like organized football in Ghana, you decide to own a club, or you decide to become a ball boy even at a football club, that realization must hit you. So if we begin to approach things in a certain way that is consistent with the kind of realization, the people who are also, we expect them to patronize the product football, will begin to see that these people are changing, for which reason we should also lend them our support and also change our ways. So to answer your question directly, it must start with us, those of us who are involved in the administration of the football. You know, once we change our ways and it begins to reflect on the things that we do, it will have a multiplier effect and it will cascade into our tirades.
And talk about those of you involved, leading the charge, etc. The approval ratings of the Football Association, and also by extension, you are very close to the president of the FA. Someone will say you are there in the corridors of power because of your involvement with the FA, you know, how you got into power, etc. Your approval ratings are not great. They haven't been great. In the court of public opinion, this FA, the FA president, his cohorts or the team around him are not the most liked people. They are not the most popular people. Do you guys get that? I don't know, do you know how the ordinary Ghanaian who loves football feels about this FA, this president, the people around him, maybe the last, 5.5 years he's been in power?
And it all starts with the change in attitude that I speak of. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of things. I think there's a lot of misconception about people in football. But for us to change that notion, it starts with we also changing our ways. Okay, you know, in my experience, a lot of conspiracy that is waged in football, and unfortunately, our actions and inactions feed into that conspiracy, and then it gives us a very, very bad name out there. But I've had a lot of people who are brought closer and they've seen things for themselves and they've realized that it's not entirely things that we control. But then these are few people who've had the privilege of coming on board to see how things are. So what if we open up even more to let people, like I said, mass participation, for them to see football for what it truly is. And by so doing, also eliminate the ills and bad things that, because in every industry, and I wouldn't run away from it, there are things that we've done as football people that has not inured to our benefit.
Like what? What are some of these things?
I don't think we are listening enough to our fans. We play the football and we expect that the fans come and patronize, buy tickets for us to get returns to run the club. I don't think we've been responsive to the needs of the ever-growing needs of the modern day supporter or a fan of football. That's our infrastructure where we play our games. It doesn't attract the kind of people that we want to attract. And the kind of effort, are we making, whether we are even making effort to improve this? For me, I don't think we've done enough in that area. That's why I said that once the realization hits you, when you are taking money to invest in in raising the standards of your venue to make it more comfortable for the fan, because you know the value of what that fan brings on board wouldn't be a hassle. It's always a hassle when I have to go to the board and make presentation of the kind of investment that we need. It's always a hassle, but it shouldn't. And it's a hassle because we are not aligned in the thinking of or the realization of what this thing goes for.
Football business.
Yes, we are only thinking,
pastime.
Yes.
3 points.
Yes,
They say
3 points.
3 points.
Yes, the 3 points is good enough, but then if you are not looking at how to sustain that level of 3 pointism, then eventually you lose out.
So you've mentioned, okay, you don't seem to be aligned with what the expectations are from the football fans. You mentioned something else, something about what you're not carrying the football fans along the way you should. What other challenges? Is there a concern with transparency? Maybe because a lot of these things come up when the national football teams are playing football, especially the Black Stars, and okay, it has to do with the millions that are mentioned in a certain way that are spent, and it doesn't look like we're doing a good job with how these millions are spent, and there are millions of dollars. And then people juxtapose it with what happens in the local game, where clubs play, etc. So you get the sense that there's a challenge with transparency, the notion of corruption. Do you guys realize this? And I ask you guys because, again, you are in the corridors of power. You're close to the president. You've been working with the president. You know more. You've been sounding very sincere, very open in your admissions and interpretations, submissions, etc. What else do we consider as a challenge? And in all sincerity, do you get the sense that there are other people in the corridors of power who have been this open, sincere about these challenges?
It comes back to what I keep saying. We've not had enough, like those of us who are quite open-minded about these things, and we are very open to changing things and making things happen, are in a minority. And that's why the process is a bit slower, because unfortunately change already is a difficult thing to enact, and more so when you are in football where people are stuck in their old ways. It's very, very difficult. I think we should be making better efforts, making better strides in trying to bring people along.
Okay.
Open up more. I don't think we should be just comfortable satisfying rules and regulations of football. The rules and regulations of football are of basic standard. If you're able to tick the boxes, you're okay. But out there, that's not what they are looking for. They are looking for us to go the extra mile. So, yes, even though the systems, the regulations are in place to guide and direct how football is administered, the standard out there is even higher. So, and there are a lot of us in football who, once we satisfy the minimum requirements of regulations of football, we think we've ticked all the boxes. And I think that's where the disconnect is.
Does the president think this way?
It's very, very, you see, I have come to a certain conclusion. I've done my analysis. The president, I have known him. He has very, very good ideas for football. Very, very good ideas for football. But for you to be able to actualize those ideas, you need to first be in the position to do that and continue to be in the position. And the truth of the matter is that sometimes you get in there and the demands on you as the president are so enormous that you might lose track of what.
So what? It's a case of what you saw when you were out there. You get into the office and then you are overwhelmed, and as a result, sometimes undermined or sort of, or you drop your guard or your standards.
The background is always is already from the point of people who are stuck in their old ways. This is the general notion of people in football. Now, to change this notion, it takes a gradual process and to bring people into the light. But before you win somebody over, especially in football, you must probably dine with the person to a certain extent. that's where somehow we as people who are leading football get it wrong, because then you have to be in a position to effect the change. If you are not singing to their tune, they will vote you out. That's the reality.
Wow.
They will vote you out.
But the current president, this administration, has been in power for 5.5 years. It's not a good time to turn it around?
There's been a lot of progress made.
Okay.
There's been a lot of progress. Unfortunately, because we are inundated with so much to do, the progress we are making is almost like a drop in the ocean, because there's just so much to do. But I agree with you that the pace at which we are developing is not as fast as we should, to be honest with you. I think there's room for improvement. We can do much more than we've done, to be honest with you. But then you need to also appreciate the environment in which you are working. If the realization has not hit everybody, it's going to be even more difficult to arrive at that desired point.
So then if 5.5 years appears to be this short, the current president has what, 2.5 years, if we're to go by the statutes to say, okay, he's done. Does this lay credence to whether they are widely thought, widely discussed, but with no confirmations from anyone, that probably the president of this administration is thinking maybe the 2 terms of 4 years each is not enough, and that we should do something about it? Is this something that, in all sincerity, you're closer to the president than any of us? Is this something that's come up and really would say, okay, we should consider this?
We hear it all the time. It's not something that we've actually sat down to really discuss, but we hear it all the time. But the point I want to make is that the kind of change we are looking for is not something that we can achieve within the term of a president in Ghana football, even if it's 3 or 4 terms. I think it's a combination of terms.
Okay.
And it will obviously go beyond this president. Okay. The kind of transformation that we want in our football, people have to put in the work over a period of time for us to get to that realization, and it will go beyond, even if he's granted 3 terms or 4 terms. I mean, his term will come to an end eventually. The next person coming in must also must continue the good works and build upon it, and then the next, and then the next. That's why I can't tell you when we will get to that realization. I hope it comes faster, but then the obvious fact is that it will go beyond the term of this president, even if it's granted a 3rd term or a 4th term.
Does this suggest that maybe the 3rd term may not really make any difference, and that we should cool talk on anything 3rd term?
For me, every term makes a difference.
Okay.
It's very, very important for us, and that's why it's not, for me, I don't look at just a 3rd term or a 4th term for a president. I look at who is coming next. For me, that's the most important thing, because even if we grant this president 4 or 5 terms and he's done, and we don't get the right person in to continue with the good things the gains that we've made, we'll come back to square zero.
We'll talk about the gains that you've made. So what, after this one, looking at the succession plan, everything. So who is coming after this president? Ameenu Shardwo?
I don't know. I don't know.
What is the grapevine saying? You're close to the president.
No,
who is he mentoring?
To be honest, it's too early to even start thinking about that. There's so much.
The president is not mentoring anyone, preparing anyone.
Well, I'm sure that
if he won't continue his tenure,
I'm sure there are people who are probably preparing themselves secretly.
You don't know anyone?
No.
How about you? Are you not preparing yourself immediately
because
to take over in 2.5 years?
There's so much work to be done in front of us for us to even
thinking.
To be honest with you, there's so much work. There's so much.
So you're not concerned with that yet?
No, not at all.
Okay, but in the future,
when the politics of football starts, we all get into it. We all know the period in which this thing heightens. So we have some time.
All right. Okay. So we'll get back to that. So talk about 5.5 years, the progress that's been made, etc. How do you rate the performance of this administration? I mean, looking at where football was and situating it in the promises made by this administration more than 5.5 years ago when you took over. How do you rate your performance on a scale of 1 to 10?
I think we've done very well. I say we because I want to believe that everybody who is involved in football administration should be part of the administration. One way or the other, we contribute to the administration. And like you said, you always have to contextualize the situation.
That's the point, yes.
If you go by the standards of what we've done, okay, we've won African Cup of Nations 4 times, why are we not winning now? You have to look at this, the environment in which you are in. And I think based on the situational analysis, I think we've done very well. Football could have gone downhill, and for us, we need to give a lot of credit for people who are still investing their time, their money to keep this sport alive. They are, for me, the MVPs of this industry. Because for what has happened to football in recent years, it was easy for everybody to say, okay, let's just shut shop and focus on other things that probably will give us immediate returns. But even though the investment for me has not been to the level that we need to get to, but people are still making that investment. Therefore, I think it's very, very important. That
so you think this administration has done very well?
I think it's
on a scale of 1 to 10.
I would say 7.
7.
Yes.
Okay. Give me
the disconnect,
3.
However, is that we are unable, and that's for me, I think, the biggest challenge of the administration. We've been unable to really communicate properly for people to understand. And also, I think we've been a bit bullish about the challenges that we face. We've been very, very hesitant opening up and talking about them in the open. We should be able to share our failures, our challenges. We should be able to make people understand why certain decisions were taken. We should also admit where we've made mistakes. I think it's very, very important that we must admit that, yes, we made this decision. It was for good intent, but it has turned out to be very, very bad. We apologize for it. And going forward, given the opportunity, this is the new course that we are charting. I think these are the elements that have been lacking, and that's why I think it forced the disconnect.
Okay, and so easily, off your cuffs, you can say these are the 3 most significant things we have done by way of the progress we've made, even contextually. That okay, we're here and this is where we are, and so 3 key things that anyone would easily say we can build on this, even if this president is not continuing in a 3rd term, whatever.
I think with all the negative publicity that football has had, football still remains very attractive.
Okay. And
we see it on a daily basis, especially when the right course are hit, when we do the right thing. A few weeks ago, we saw the Black Stars play at Accra Sports Stadium, where even a stand that was closed, it ended up taking people. But then a few months prior to that, we saw a stadium with a very, very hostile atmosphere against Niger because we had failed to qualify for the AFCON. So it tells you that it's very, very possible that if you do the right things, you can woo the people back. And for me, when I see people in the stands, cheering the national team, cheering their clubs, for me, is the highlight of being in the industry. A few years back, we saw Hassan Kotoko, overly subscribed, ambassadors, people couldn't even have space and all that. A few years down the line, they play in virtually an empty stadium. So, yes, as for the gains, I think if you look at, training, for me, training of the various blocks, referees, coaches, administrators, I think it's gone on quite well. I think the FA has done also very well in trying to invest in infrastructure, especially at the technical center. You could tell clearly that even though investment has been, been lacking, there's some sort of activity going on there. Every time you go there, you see, even though the progress is not that huge, significant, you see some level of progress on there. The outlook of the headquarters itself, you go there and you compare to times past, it has a more corporate outlook, and we appear to be getting people of high repute into, good leadership positions in the FA, which helps even the if you look at the outlook of the FA. And logistical club on club level, I think regulatory wise we've been quite strong. A lot of people disagree with how some of the regulatory things are discharged, but we've been tight, we've been on schedule, especially with our programs, our leagues, and other competitions. I think those are the basics, and we're missing out on the basics. So it's up to us now to consolidate and then build on it.
And that brings me to the point that, so what's that 30%? What's that 3 points? Because you say 7 out of 10, so 70%. So what's that we have to do to move it to 100% and even start delighting people because we're doing more than 100%? What's that thing?
You have to find a way to crack the code of convincing people in football that this is the way.
Okay.
And we have to stick to that way.
Okay.
A lot too often, people know the way, we start on the journey, and then people either
veer off
for one reason or the other. I think that for me is the biggest challenge. If, for instance, we've been on the journey on club licensing for quite a while now, we are not making the significant strides that we ought to, because we keep veering off.
Is this whole club licensing thing a hoax? Is it a hoax? When we look infrastructure-wise, system-wise, structure-wise, not just football, but as a people, our communities, our infrastructural arrangement, etc., are we realistic if we want to go by the books as regards club licensing? Will any club pass to play football professionally in this country?
That's why the club licensing regime here in Ghana is always segmented, and we try to enhance it year on year. The only problem is that we've not been able to sustain the enhancement,
the tweaking,
year on. And like I said, and that's why people fall off and veer off, because I mean, what do they gain or what do they lose if they don't even achieve those standards? But I think if we are able to put some sort of reward scheme into the club licensing, I mean, encourage people to put in the right structures for them to access. And one thing that we like in our industry is funding. If we know there's funds somewhere to access,
you will do everything
you have to tie.
But it happens elsewhere, internationally, even in Europe. There are things, play in this competition, get to this level and get this. Or do this, get to this level. We don't seem to have that working here.
Yes,
or there are things we can't copy.
Yeah, because we've not tied them to very, very lucrative financial rewards.
Why can't we do that? How come this administration is not able to do that?
Because perhaps the funds to put in there are not available. If you look at what has happened even globally in terms of industry, people with the money to invest in sports, they've suffered. People are beginning to pick up now. If given the opportunity and given some funding, we should be able to allocate some funds, some good amount of funds into this club licensing.
You haven't heard talk of how the FA receives millions of dollars from FIFA and CAF. No one seemed to know what it is used for.
That's the education and the advocacy part that I think the FA has not done well with, because we all know, people in the industry know very well that every fund that comes from FIFA is tied to a certain objective. And that objective alone, you can't misappropriate FIFA funds. FIFA funds that comes in these millions are tied towards projects. And we've seen some of the projects, we've seen the headquarters, we've seen what's happening at the technical center. We've seen, like I said, some of the decisions and some of the projects have not yielded the results. For instance, one clear one was the borehole project. I thought it was a fantastic idea. But the way and manner it's been implemented, for instance,
many are not functional.
And the fact that we didn't get the buy-in of people who are even supposed to benefit from these things, so that they are able to maintain these facilities. For me, it's one example of something that probably
it is one of the regrets of this administration.
I personally, I don't know whether it's a regret for this administration, but I think that perhaps implementation could have been done in a much better way.
Okay.
And for the advocacy, especially for people to really accept the concept of this project, because if it has achieved its objective, a lot of the challenges that you have today would have.
Maybe. So how about all of this challenge linked to we're football people? We make the decisions, we make the calls. So like you said earlier, you're not listening enough. So then when it comes to doing certain things, there are people who say, okay, you say you've got so then we leave you to do it. Maybe that's the
It is. It's part of the challenges. That's why I say we should open up more to alternative ideas. We should try and open up for people with expertise, especially people with known expertise in the various fields, to come and help us
and support us. The project.
Us. It's one sure way of progress.
Okay.
But if we continue to be tight-knit, I mean, nobody will want to come in.
I'm sure you've heard all the argument. I'm sure you've heard all the argument for and against any notion, any suspicion that current president, who is you're very close to, will want to seek a third term, etc. And they say, okay, laws won't take retrospective effect. The law that brought him into power says 2 terms and 2 terms only. Even if he does anything to amend the laws, he would need to, as it were, he would need to leave office before then. It will affect whoever comes next, etc., etc. Can we say that Ghanaians should be very surprised if the current president, this administration, does push through this talk of a third term? Should it surprise anyone if this happens?
I don't think
you have mentioned that it's not being talked about, etc.
I don't think we should be surprised when it comes to a head, because these are issues that have dominated discussions for quite a while. The point I've always made is that it's just too early.
It's just 2.5 years.
Honestly, in football, 2.5 years is quite a long time.
It's a long time.
In between, a lot of things can happen. I've not even affected my mind as to how the rules and regulations and whether it is permissible or not, because it's just not the time yet. The time will come for us, all of us, to share our candid opinion as and when the matters comes to a head. And I will entreat people, just exercise a bit of patience. Let us focus on the work ahead of us. For me, I think it's the most important thing. If we start giving a lot of focus on these issues, it has the potential of distracting us on the real work that is ahead of us. And I will just add that we put all these issues to the back burner. It will come.
Okay.
Eventually, we will get there. Like I said, when it's time for the football politics, all of us will come, and then based on the situation and our prevailing circumstances, we will make our stance. We'll never shy away of making our stance.
All right. You mentioned eloquently some of the gains made, and I agree with many of them. In business, you say investor confidence, etc. Okay, we may not be at that point where you say, okay, so public investor confidence, but the people who still invest in football are there. They're putting money into it all the time. Yes, the interest levels, etc., are still there, like you said, the technical part of the game, etc. But I assume there have been some lows. I don't know how regretting these lows are for this administration. For instance, failing to qualify for the AFCON later this year should be big. We have not gotten out of the group stage of any Africa Cup of Nations. The previous 2 or 3 we've played in, the World Cup is one of them. I don't know, the scandals, many of them, of course, unsubstantiated. But are there regrets for this administration, for the president who is your friend, who you speak to regularly? Are there regrets?
Of course. I mean, you can't look at this period since 2019 and not identify 1 or 2 moments that are quite regrettable. And you mentioned the AFCON failure to qualify for the AFCON is like the minimum. when we're starting the qualifiers, nobody thought to end the qualifiers not qualifying for the AFCON. It was a big failure on our part as people in the industry. And no matter how bad the situation is, at least qualifying for major tournaments brings some sort of relief and reprieve for people to enjoy football. And it also teaches lessons. But for me, I always look at these low moments and I always want to draw the lessons and use them in how you move forward. For me, that's the most important thing. There will always be failures in life, always. There will always be low moments in your life. There will always be there. The most important thing is that whether as and when these failures occur, you are taking the right steps to ensure that they don't recur. For me, that's the most.
Is this administration doing that?
I believe so. I believe so. And if you look at, like I said earlier, if you look at when we played the last AFCON qualifier against Niger, the general atmosphere in Ghana, and the last game the Blasters played, they are at variance. It tells you that something has happened. Something has happened. And I hope that we are able to maintain this level of momentum and sustain the kind of good strategies that has been deployed. There's generally a good atmosphere around football all of a sudden. It's up to us to make sure that we hit the right course, do the right things, and listen more, open up. Once we do that, I'm sure we'll be fine.
If there's anything driving this administration, led by the president, to do something in the 2.5 years remaining in its tenure, what is this? What is this? There's something we have to do. There's a point we need to get to. There are things we need to achieve palpably and say, Charlie, this 2.5 years, these things are driving us. What are these things?
You know, when we played in last World Cup, part of the process, we're committed to building a hostel facility. It tells you that if we're able to qualify for the next World Cup and even do better, we could have more funds to even develop more. I think we should be able to link the financial gains from such participations to building infrastructure that will help the sport. And I think that's, for me, should be the driving force. We are in a very good position to qualify for the World Cup. If we're able to qualify, at least then we know the minimum that we will make out of it. Convincing government to see, in fact, if it's possible, all of its share of investment, and for us to put out, such infrastructure, and even the prospect of even doing well in the World Cup. So I think that should be, in the next 2.5 years, I think that should be the motivation. Because if you look at the possible things that could happen in the next 2.5 years, that's the major thing on top of the World Cup. The gains that we're going to make from the World Cup, let us channel it into something that in 10 years to come, we can point back and say that at least, if for nothing at all, these people did this.
I'm a big believer that league football should be the biggest product for the Football Association. For football anywhere in the world. International football comes around once a while. But league football is so big that there are nations that are recognized as football powerhouses because of league football. From the top division to the lowest, as it runs through. What's the biggest league how big is league football to you guys, this administration, and what do you want to do with it?
I think as Ghanaians, we've been very hypocritical in our approach to what football is supposed to be. When we put a lot of emphasis on club football and club football is thriving, people seem not to appreciate the progress made there, especially when the national team is not doing well. But I agree with you. I think the lifeblood of every thriving football industry is the leagues. That's why I reference even during the COVID era when the league was as if there was a new life in the league. People were patronizing the league matches and going to the stadium. It was a good feeling factor. But then the national team wasn't doing well during that period. And then the general notion was that football wasn't doing well. I think we need to, again, it comes back to the realization. Let us communicate better. Let us look at the priorities and identify that one can lead to the sustainability of the other. If the leagues are thriving, maybe for a period of time the national team will not do well, but over a long period of time, if you have a very strong league, a thriving league, it has a way of, affecting performance at the national level. So I agree with you. Unfortunately, these 2.5 years, I don't think we will be able to do much. But like I said, let's do what we can do. Let's do what we can do to put league football back on the pedestal. It's league football that catapulted a club like Dreams FC to the international stage. We reaped a lot of dividends in our participation in the Confederation Cup because of league football. And if I had the opportunity, we should be winning the league all the time to get to that level, because it opens a big area of opportunities, an even bigger area of opportunities for your club. And I'm sure that's why clubs like Hearts and Kotoko, are always, desirous of winning the league, because it gives you a certain level of leverage. And if you're able to do well and sustain it and go there and even do better, it opens a bigger opportunity for you. So yes, I agree with you. We should concentrate more on league football.
Talk about Dreams FC. As a club in transition, your performances the last 2 or so seasons have been checkered.
Yes, I think almost 2 years ago when we played in the semi-final of it was the height of a project,
club football on the continent.
Yeah, a project that has been in motion for 6 years, because I look at the squad that we played in the Confederation Cup, and about 70% of those players were players from our youth team still believe. So for me, it was the height of a project.
Everything you had been doing.
Exactly. And that level of success again opened doors for some of these players. In fact, most of these players.
Yes.
Only one player has remained from that squad, and therefore it was bound to have an effect on him. Luckily enough for us, even though the first round was very, very bad, because we brought in a lot of young players, and we are starting another era of another project. Hopefully it won't take us 7 years for us to realize that height, and that's what we are hoping to catalyze the process, so that it doesn't take too long for us to return to that level. But it also gives us a big lesson. Whilst we're in the process of getting to that height, we forgot about who's coming next. And for me, I think that's the most important.
Okay,
so
that's very sincere.
So the lesson here is that once you are building this project, make sure you build others.
The conveyor belt should
match
very
exactly
strong.
Because we did quality recruitment at the youth level 7 years ago. That's what brought us this far. Perhaps if we had done so in the ensuing years, we would have still been at that level. And I think that's a lesson that, for me personally, I've taken on board and tried to.
But mainly these things you mention are technical or tactical, if you want to call it, if you bring in coaching and all. But how about administrative? So that, how do you explain that the club Dreams FC is the president's club, is the president of the FA's club, and he is on record to have said that my Dreams FC. The president's club has played in 3 or 4 different venues in half season. So in like 17 matches, you have moved from one venue to the other, 4 different venues. This doesn't speak well of any serious club, does it?
Yes, it doesn't. We need to find.
It's an indictment, isn't it?
We are still. You see, Dreams FC was formed in 2009 out of adversity from Mamobi Midland. So a lot of things were not taken into serious consideration. If I'm being honest with you, we know where our real home is. Unfortunately, we are not able to find the land in that real home to put up a facility. That I can assure you, if we are able to do that, it will be filled every weekend when we are playing there. So what do? The alternative, we need to find a real home, and we need to do a lot of community engagement in that home to make sure that these are definite home. What we've not done, we've always been in adopted homes. We've not really identified the place as a real home. And I think it's something that, together with the board, we are looking to really solve once and for all.
This doesn't look good on the president, does it?
No, it doesn't. He's a member of the board. I report to the board, and then whenever we go for board meetings, one thing that really worries all of us, we need to find ourselves a permanent home where we call Dreams. This Dreams FC's home, where we can now build the proper foundations in that community and ensure that it even outlives us. So yes, it's one thing, one big area we will be looking to resolve.
Okay, and so the future of Dreams FC. What are the expectations? What do you guys want to do? What do you want to do with this club? It's the President's Club. We don't stop talking about this because you go to different places and presidents who own clubs and are involved with the Football Association. I mean, it's not a crime. People do it all over the world. The president of Dortmund or Atletico Madrid, or go to any of these big clubs. Adriano Galliani was with it. Milan was involved with Liga Calcio. It is sometimes we get it wrong, absolutely wrong, and disappointed even from journalists who do not seem to have any institutional knowledge at all when they discuss these things. But obviously, if you are the President's Club, the expectations are higher. The standards must be higher because this is the guy who runs Ghana football, and what he does with his club appears to be, someone would say, a foretaste of what he can do with a bigger brand of Ghana football.
I agree with you. In one breath, it has helped us. In another breath, it has gone against us because I can tell you how we've changed in the way we do things, and you can see clearly that our progress has stunted over the years, especially when he became president of the AFA. Unfortunately for us, we don't have him to us on a day-to-day basis. He's a man full of ideas, full of innovation, full of drive. He has a way of driving people towards a certain goal. We've lost that a lot. And it's not difficult to replace in such kind of leadership. The other thing is that where he serves as an inspiration for all of us who are left here too. It's a challenge. He has done his bit. Now he's looking at us to carry the mantle. It's been very, very difficult, I must admit. Some of us are still learning, to be honest with you. So it will take time. It will take time. But the good thing is that the board always has the will for us to make progress. And even though on a global level, outside you might not see the progress as you're supposed to, we in here, we know, based on the situation we find ourselves, we know that we've made some massive headways. And if we are to stay true to the tenets or the plans and programs that we've done for this football club, I can assure you that within the next few years, this club will be the envy of many. I can assure you that. But we need to make the necessary investments. We need to continue, like I said, stay true to the plans and programs that we've outlined for ourselves. And I'm sure when we do that, regardless of the result that we get, if we're able to stay true to the off-field, especially off-field plans, it will have a way of catapulting us back to the top.
Okay, we're wrapping up. Let's do a bit of Black Stars before we go. So, have you overcome all of the doubts, the undermining, the name calling when you took up this job as team manager of the Black Stars? I always say general manager because the person is a link person between technical administration, etc. Have you gotten over all of the initial name calling, naysayers, etc.? You're what? A little over 2 years into the job, isn't it?
I think it's died down a bit. But I think, yes, it was a...
Were you surprised from the beginning? Do you think you deserved the role?
Well, it will be... I don't know about... Well, I think perhaps this question will be directed to those who employed me. Because I knew that I wasn't the only one in contention for the job. People might say it's because of my connection to leadership. It might be the case, but then...
Life is like that.
But then if I go in there and I mess up myself, then I'll probably give credence to the people who doubted me. People tend to tie the success of the work of a team manager to results. I take it because if the results are good, I'm sure I'll be out there.
It magnifies whatever it is you're doing.
But the thing is that it goes way beyond that. It goes to the work that I do with the national team. Even for me, even though I had plans going there, I go in there and I realize that there's so much to be done. So much to be done. And I'm happy that a lot of people are beginning to discuss this role more because of my appointment. And the advocacy level will rise, because prior to my appointment, I don't think people have discussed the job of a team manager.
Not necessarily. What do you guys do? They say, well, you carry passport, you take passport from the boys, and you. So what does the team manager? What do you do? That's Black Stars team manager.
My job primarily is to ensure that all the needs of the team is catered for.
Okay. Everything.
So
from what? Who coaches the team? What are the needs
the logistical needs of the team is the most important thing. Make sure everything that is needed from the coaches, from the players, from everybody else is provided for.
Do you have a say who is Black Stars coach and not? Are you the one who appoints the Black Stars coach?
No, I'm not.
Do you recommend who should be Black Stars coach?
No, of course they ask your opinion about one thing or the other.
Will your opinion matter?
I don't know how far that opinion goes, but because of our small experience that we've gathered over the years, at least we are in the position to offer some sort of advice or suggestion that based on what we saw here and here, if we do this going forward, and some of them have played out quite well. I mean, some of them are still in the works. Some of them have not gone well, I must admit. So that's life, I guess.
So I asked, what does the team? You say you make sure that every need of the team is met. So from what coaches expect, what the players expect, etc. Can you break it down to our level? That's a bit homogeneous.
Well, roles like the team manager, if it's not played well, you might even lose the match even before you go out on the field of play to play. Record keeping, very, very, very important. Regulatory compliance, extremely important. You could lose, like I said, you could lose a match even before you play it if you don't. There's a discussion about South Africa
fielding an unqualified player.
You might think how can such a thing happen? It can really happen.
So squarely at the doorstep of the team manager.
Squarely, you'll be held. I don't want to be in the shoes of whoever is managing that area in South Africa now. If indeed these reports are to be believed, there are a lot of moving marbles at the same time that if you don't keep focus on the most important thing, you might lose track on all these things. So yes, the preparation of the team, your advice on areas or sites for preparation, the logistics needed for preparation, match day operations, planning of the itinerary of the team, trips,
games.
You are involved in all those things.
Okay.
So I can give you a litany of roles and responsibilities.
How much is that a departure or a contrast from your work as general manager of Dreams FC?
I have more power here as general manager of Dreams FC. I'm able to. I pretty much call the shot. With the national team, because it's much bigger and a lot of interest, you have to go through a lot of layers. Sometimes it's a bit frustrating, to be honest with you. You wish this is what we need to do, but you have to wait on the call. It's almost like in the military. Your commanding officer have to set you free to do certain things. Otherwise, you go there and it doesn't go well, you'll be held squarely responsible.
So you don't take players' passports, you don't carry passports, you don't how do you call that? Take their clothes to go and wash and all that.
I do carry passport. Like I said, you can, if you go into a match without a passport. I carry the passport not because they can't carry their passport. It's to make sure that their passport arrive at the right location, because we've had instances where people have forgotten their passport even in flights. And it causes major problems. So I carry them to make sure that it gets to where it's supposed to get. So yes, I carry the passport. Most important thing, the details on that passport must appear in certain documentations and all that. So yes, I do carry some of the passport, but I think that's the lesser of the task that you are supposed to do.
How much has this matured you? How much has this grown you? This role?
I think it has. I've learned a lot about patience and ability to absorb a lot of shocks. What we've gone through in recent times has taught me a lot. Very, very humbling. For me, I always approach this job as a humble privilege.
Okay.
And I know very well that a time will come where I'll know more the team.
Be
manager.
there, yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I enjoy the moments. I like the challenges. For me, I'm a sucker for hard work anyway. So I like the sleepless nights. Sometimes you have to sleep in chairs at the airport to make sure that somebody's on the flight and all that. I like it. But I know it's for a period of time, and when the time comes, hopefully I would have done enough to be referenced at a point in time. This guy came and he did a good job.
What's the health of the Black Stars? What's the health? The health of the Black... And you know, if you talk about a team's health, you're talking players, managerial, technical, you're talking prospect, you're talking players. What's the health on a scale of 1 to 10?
At present, I'll say 10.
10?
Yes, because of the
10 means we're world beaters.
Because of the happenings of the last game.
Okay.
Look, the national team, I think it's the same with other national teams also, but especially with the A national team, draws its strength from the general populace. Whenever there's a disconnect, it affects performance. It's not something that I can easily explain away. It's not science. It's something that is there. It's intangible. You have to feel it. When the connection between the national team and the general public is very, very strong, the team is almost unbeatable. Almost. And I felt it in the last
2 games.
Everybody seemed to be willing the team well. Because, and I think it's something that, and the players understand it, they have a way of feeling it. Their conduct in camp, how they apply themselves, even when things are not right, how they are able to overlook certain things just because they know that they can't disappoint the millions of people. But whenever there's a disconnect, so I think our job as managers is to try to ensure that always that connection is there. It's very, very strong. And I think it starts from how we conduct ourselves, how we communicate, very, very, very important, and how we deal with certain sticky situations to ensure that we safeguard the relationship between the team and the general public.
Okay.
Because through that is where we are going to be successful.
I mean, was the FA, and people mentioned the president, were we excessive in keeping our technical team, like our coach? Is he the right guy? Is he the right guy for the job? I mean, this is somebody who failed miserably to qualify us to the AFCON for the first time since 2004, sorry. And he was so abysmal that I'm not sure we can mention some of the words. They are unprintable. And you know, coaches did less to lose their jobs. And this guy went through all of that and still kept his job. And public opinion says, okay, he's backed by these guys. What have they seen that we haven't seen? And the coach should go. Do we have the right guy as coach of the Black Stars?
You are absolutely right when you say that all of us should have left the job. But that's not how you build. If you are convinced that you have the right person, it's just a matter of time. There will be challenges. And I'm absolutely convinced Otto is the right person. He got a lot of things wrong. He is the first to admit that. If you put a camera before him, he will willingly tell you he got a lot of things wrong. But the way he coaches, the way he applies himself, the way he's always willing to learn, he never sleeps, hard worker. You could tell clearly that this is somebody who is destined for the top. It will really take time. And I know that with the passage of time, all of us will come to appreciate that. All of us, even though we're on the edge, all of us did a good job by keeping him, because he will be a blessing unto us for a lot of years to come. I'm very, very sure of it. I'm very, very sure. He's young, he's driven, very, very passionate, and he's willing to learn. He's willing to listen to the alternative mind. And these are traits of somebody who is going to be successful. And I believe in him. And I'm very, very grateful that those who were calling the shots on his future decided to keep him, because I think it has done us more good. I think now he's stronger and in a better position to coach even better and give us better results than to bring in somebody new.
So you say, give him a contract for life.
I would easily say that, but I think the contract that was given to him initially was depictive of somebody who wanted a long term.
Okay.
I think the only thing is that we didn't communicate well that indeed he is in for the long term, and that where there will be shocks, and there will be shocks. And when there are shocks, we will try and help him fix. He's not world class up there, but he's somebody on his way to be world class. I have absolute no doubt at all. I think in years to come, we'll look back on this period and say, that's the period that shaped him for the greatness that is gone for.
Yeah, this team is on its way. I have said that we're 80% in North America already for the World Cup. I've been saying that bullishly because having done this business all these years, 20-something years, I know what qualifying to major championships will do for any nation, the players, the ecosystem, the football ecosystem, sport ecosystem in general. So I want to see us in North America. But how much more can this team achieve? Of course, we won't be at the AFCON in December, but how much can this team achieve? The team AFCON?
The team has a huge potential. They are players of right ages. And by the time the next AFCON comes, they'll be hitting their peaks. They are players on the cusp of moving to bigger teams, more challenging, and they have a good repertoire of experience. Look at what you've just gone through. The know-how of being successful, they would have gone through the mill. So I think everything is pretty much setting up for a very, very exciting future. I know it's very, very difficult to win the AFCON. I think the AFCON is one of the most difficult competitions to win. It's very, very difficult. So I won't be here to say, I think we can win the next AFCON, the next one apart from
2027.
I think it will be wrong for us to be saying that. But if we continuously build this team, we give them the support that we've given them in recent times, and we continue to let them feel the pulse of the Ghanaian, I think they have the potential of doing something very, very special for this nation. It might not come immediately. It might take some time. But I know definitely this generation will get there. We are so talented. And they are like I said, they are building a good track record for themselves, having gone through the mill. And they are going to be very, very primed for success when the time comes.
You know a lot that I do not know, that many don't know, because you are speaking to the coach all the time. The coach appears to, that is someone who's going to be there for a long time and all of that. We have a new Black Stars captain. Does that spell the end for Andre Ayew, who's been captain for some time?
I don't think so at all. I've been in positions where I've made definite comments about Andre saying he's never coming back on this. And he has come back. So I'm no one to say this is the end for him. That guy he's a very strong character. And he knows how to win. Over some period of time now, he has not been with the team. And for me, I think it's a challenge for him if indeed he really wants to return to the team. I don't know what tomorrow holds.
Yeah, but
he's not somebody I'll rule out.
Yeah, but what does he require? He appears to have he's found a club. He appears to be playing easily one of our best forwards anywhere in the world this season. In fact, last season as well. So what else is left for him to do technically to make a return?
Maybe you should be speaking to the coach because he's the one who makes this.
We have an appointment with the coach. Maybe
yes. Maybe he will be able to tell you.
But what conversations do you guys have? Is it the end for him? Is it the end for him?
No. Somebody like Andre, I'll never say no. There's somebody I'll never say never.
A definite no.
No. I'll never say.
You expect to see Andre back in the Black Stars team?
I expect him to do even more. Look, that guy, when I was writing, there were times where I wrote him off, completely off. He came back and I ate humble by spite. So I've come to the conclusion that this is somebody who you can never write off, say never.
Do you miss him in the team? You work with him. Do you miss him?
Yes.
Do you guys miss him?
Yes.
Does Camp miss him?
Yes, sometimes. There are certain situations that you wish, Andre, if Andre were here, things would be this way. But the ones who are there are also doing their best. And believe me, Jordan, Partey, and the rest, they're also doing their best. Mm-hmm. Trust me, everybody's different. You miss everybody based on whatever situation that you are in and based on the experience you've had with them. He's a very, very good fella, Andre.
How big would it be if he makes a return? How important would it be for us?
I think he, Andre, or the coach probably will be in the best position to tell you. Because
tell
they will know.
Okay.
But for me, I will never write him off. Never.
Okay.
Never.
The last game in Accra, I was at the stadium. I mean, I came to town to watch that game. And I saw you issue out instruction when there was a bit of a discrepancy over who wore the armband after Jordan Ayew. Jordan was coming out and wearing sure, he was trying to give the armband to Partey but I saw you because I was paying attention to what your reaction would be. And you were issuing out instruction. I could be wrong, to Partey to take it. You were making a point like this, like take it, like give it to him, that sort of thing. And Partey took the captain's armband after much reluctance. Am I right?
I think it was because he knew he was going to come off after Jordan.
Okay.
Yeah, he knew because at that point I think we were 4-0 up, and the coach was trying to reserve some of the energy for the next game, which was also going to be very important. So he knew it was just a matter of time. So he was probably thinking the long term. Yeah, but then we're trying to.
Yeah, but you're still on the pitch, so you don't think long term.
Yeah, live in the moment. So
did you do that? Did you intervene?
No, I wouldn't say I intervened. Maybe a reminder of a sort.
Okay.
But that's why I'm saying that they are going through a phase where they are building up a good level of experience. All these things count. All these little things, they count. And by the time the next opportunity avails itself, they'll be primed to do things perfectly. And that's why I'm convinced we'll do well.
Is there a captaincy issue in the Black Stars?
Not at all. Not at all.
Who is the captain of the team?
We all know the captain of the team as at now.
Okay. Can you give us? Normally teams will have what, 3 captains, something like that, hierarchically. Yeah. So can you help us with the hierarchy?
The FA itself in this release of the last team for the window named the captain is Jordan, is Thomas Partey, is Mohamed Kudus, is Alexander Jiku.
Okay. So you have 4 captains.
Yeah, but I see. For me,
was it just for the game, or this the new leadership?
That's the order. But you see, I always say this: the captain armband is up. You only see it during the 90 minutes. For me, the leadership is more of everything except for the 90 minutes that you see out there. And the way they conduct themselves is as if we don't know who the supremo is, because they are so together.
Is there a quintessential captain? Very obvious in the team at all times, as in training, in the camp, in the hotel, travel.
No, there are a group of leaders that we always see. They are always unique. You always see it. The way they even apply themselves in training, the way they speak, the way they adhere to time. When they are there,
So it's a group of leaders rather than one very copious person.
Yes, okay. It is.
In the past, you can compare it to the past. If Abedi Pele is in the team, that's a clear leader in all things. I mean, even Andrea, you say this is the clear leader. You're saying that there's a bit of a departure from that.
The thing too is that the clear captain Jordan Ayew, the trait and character of him is such that he doesn't want to be like isolated as the captain in one. No. He's not one to be like that.
Is there a bit of a different character from his brother?
It's very different. They are very different characters. Okay. Very, very different characters. He also comes in with a lot of aura, a lot of respect. The way he conducts himself is always punctual. So, as a junior player, you always look up to somebody like that. And he leads by performance also on the field of play. Very, very inspirational.
How true are rumors that your coach is not very comfortable with Andre Ayew as his captain? Is the reason he may never call him to play with this team if he stays on as coach? Are these rumors
I don't think this feeling is as strong as we hear out there. No. The Otto, I know, and we've had discussions about this, he doesn't take things too much to heart like that.
Has there been any friction between the two?
No, I don't think so. But then I think the best person to speak are these individuals. Maybe something might have happened behind me. I don't know. But what I've been exposed to so far, it's not somebody to hold a grudge. No, not at all. Not at all. It's not.
I hope you've enjoyed this.
I have. To be honest with you, a bit in every moment.
Is there anything we've left out?
Oh no, I think we've covered all the.
Is there anything you want to say to the Ghanaian people? You I've got to say that yes, I'm a big voice as well. By God's grace, I've been doing this for many years, and I've got to say to you that I have not seen that many young people who have been as focused as you have been, risen through the ranks the way you have done, clearly knows what you're about, what you want to do, where you are headed. Your growth has been nothing short of inspirational. I can't help but draw inspiration from you all the time for everything you have stood for over the years and the trajectory. You know, it's incredible. It's incredible. And I take a lot of pride in how strong a position you have taken in developing as an individual, you know, and how much more you bring to the table in the coming years. I have to say to you, it's no prophecy or anything, but I have to say to you that I will be very surprised if you do not rise to the top echelons of football administration in this country or sports administration in this country, or anything you find yourself doing, whether it's in regular governance, politics, or anything. I will be very surprised because there are all the makings, there are all the signs that shows that this is a young man who wants to, or who is growing so well to make a difference wherever you find yourself. You've done great for yourself, and I look forward to you doing even more in the coming years. You know, so I've enjoyed this session with you. I've enjoyed the conversation. I don't know if you have anything to say before we wrap up.
I'm very, very humbled, to be honest with you, by your very, very inspiring words. The aim has always been to be an example, to open doors for other people also. For me, it's very, very important. How we conduct ourselves as young people goes a long way towards encouraging the old order to give more opportunities for younger people. And I'm very, very touched by your words. And how I say that, I consider myself very, very lucky. When I set out in this journey, especially when I started writing on football, I found myself a very good company. Yourself, Michael, all the guys. You helped us one way, you functioned us one way or the other. And that's how come we got a lot of gravitas, if I should say, you know, to move into the next realm. And people respected us because we were in a company of very, very good people, people who were professionals, you know, and it's really, really built our character. So I'm very, very grateful to people like yourself and others for helping us. And we hope that what we've learned from you will go to also impact it to the others who are coming, who are willing and open to building themselves. And I still maintain that I'm looking forward to joining the back group one way or the other, because I love what people are doing. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Our paths will really, really cross again.
Yes.
And thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. Our paths will definitely cross. Thank you so much, Ameenu.